We've all seen it happen. A deadline moves up, a server crashes, the room erupts into a panic, and one person remains perfectly composed. While everyone else falls apart, they quietly sip their coffee and get to work. Society prizes this trait. We call these people rocks, frequently promoting them into leadership and treating their lack of visible stress as the gold standard for professional conduct. But appearing unfazed on the outside hides a split in psychological reality. That identical icy composure can emerge from two distinct invisible mental states. Misinterpreting this silence comes with a cost. A quiet exterior often masks the heavy physical and mental price paid by those who are simply surviving the moment rather than thriving within it. Resilience is defined by how your nervous system processes a threat on the inside, regardless of the face you show the world. True regulation relies on biological hardware. The primary driver of our alertness is a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine, synthesized in the brain's locus ceruleus. This chart illustrates how norepinephrine levels dictate our ability to handle pressure. It follows an inverted U-curve, mapping the concentration of the chemical against our cognitive performance. Low levels of norepinephrine lead to apathy and lethargy. Conversely, when a crisis floods the system with too much of the chemical, the brain shifts into hypervigilance and cognitive rigidity. Performance peaks in the optimal zone. Here, the brain achieves a clear signal-to-noise ratio, providing enough arousal to focus on the threat while maintaining the balance needed for flexible decision-making. The brain identifies its position on this curve through interoception, a constant deep awareness of internal signals, like heartbeat and breathing. When those internal signals show arousal spiking, a regulated nervous system engages the vagus nerve. This acts as a biological brake on the sympathetic nervous system, physically slowing the heart rate to keep the mind sharp. Resilient individuals feel their physical response to stress fully. They use their vagal brake to manage that energy, ensuring their heart rate supports their focus rather than overwhelming it. Once the hardware applies the brakes, the psychological software takes over. Composure depends on how the mind frames a stressful event the moment it occurs. This framing happens in the stimulus-response gap. This is the deliberate pause between a threat appearing and a person choosing how to react to it. This flowchart explains the mechanics inside that pause. It's the PIPE model, mapping out the pathways of psychological immunity and psychological elasticity. The first mechanism is tolerance. In this phase, the individual consciously refrains from defensive, reactive panic. They accept the presence of the stressor without immediately triggering a fight or flight response. Once the response is paused, narrative construction begins. The mind reframes the threat into a manageable challenge, integrating the chaos into a constructive story that allows the person to thrive. This form of calm is an active, elastic process. It integrates the impact of a crisis rather than simply blocking it out. But for others, composure has a different origin, one rooted in a survival adaptation rather than a high vagal tone. This trait often develops in unpredictable childhood environments where emotional reactions were punished or ignored. In those settings, staying composed was the only way to stay safe. This creates hyperregulation. The nervous system freezes outward expression, while the internal state remains highly distressed. This is bracing. The person absorbs the tension of the room to stabilize others, while failing to release any of their own. Postponing the emotional cycle helps a person survive the immediate emergency, but the body carries that energy forward. Because there is no release valve, a delayed crash is inevitable. This trauma-induced calm is a specific, efficient defense mechanism. However, maintaining that facade requires significant internal energy, leading to eventual burnout. Because different types of calm look identical during a crisis, we have to look at what happens after the threat has passed to distinguish them. A regulated nervous system returns to its baseline, allowing for rapid recovery. A hyper-regulated system, no longer needing the facade, sinks into chronic fatigue and emotional emptiness. Healing requires teaching the nervous system that internal emotions no longer represent a threat. is involves moving away from reflexive suppression toward a state where feelings can move through the body safely. Building true resilience involves lowering the body's baseline arousal through mindfulness and using cognitive reappraisal to actively change the internal narrative of a stressor. True grace under pressure comes from the capacity to feel deeply, process that data safely, and emerge whole on the other side.